Anytime you get a bunch of people from the bow hunting world together, it's a little awkward because you see a lot of faces you've only interacted with on the internet. So you kind of make eye contact from afar and figure out if you're actual friends or you're just internet friends. Welcome to the Coda Cast, Coda Corner, Coda Collective. I don't know, comment below what you think we should call segments like this. My name's AJ from Knights of the Apex. I'm going to be covering some of the favorite gear that I saw from ATA 2020, as well as the stuff that you all asked about via Instagram. I do want to give a special shout out and thank you to Easton. I reached out to the Archery Trade Association. They told me, based on the following that Knights of the Apex has right now, that I did not qualify to attend as a media member. I hit up my contacts over at Easton. They were immediately like, don't worry about it, fam, we got you. So thank you, Easton. One of the product lines that I've been recommending to people for the last couple of months that are just getting into bow hunting has been this 6.5 bow hunter line. If you pay attention to gear and the industry, you might recognize this formerly being under Beeman. Easton has since rebranded them under Easton. And now not only do they look a lot cooler, but you have an affordable option for those of you that like to fling a lot of arrows, or maybe you're just getting into it, you're not that accurate yet. This is an awesome option because what you have is you have 3 arrows all in the same grains per inch, so same overall weight. So you can have the same setup on all arrows, but they have different price points. So what you can do is you can buy a dozen of the 6/1000 straightness arrows as your practice arrows, you're screwing around with arrows, right? Your experimental arrows. And those are going to come in, I believe they're retailing for around $6.50 each. And then you can save your match grade arrows, your 1/1000 straightness arrows, which are going to be closer to $10 each. Those can be your hunting arrows. So if you're somebody that maybe you're just starting to poke out at distances 80 yards and beyond, maybe you're signed up for your first total archery challenge, right? Buy those 6/1000 straightness arrows, tune them, work on them, experiment with them, and then save your more expensive arrows for hunting. The one sacrifice that you're making is that this is a standard diameter arrow, so you are going to have a little bit more wind drag than you would with a 5mm or 4mm axis or injection arrow. The advantage is the standard diameter shafts are much easier to work with. Because of the circumference of the arrow, it's easier to get vanes to adhere to them. The components that you're working with are just a little bit larger. You can experiment with any broadheads. You're not limited in the category that you can use. And the nocks that come with them are very short and very strong. So really just a great foundational arrow line from you to build off of and learn. Another 6.5mm arrow that's going to be hitting the market this year is the new Matrix. Now this arrow, it's essentially a hyperspeed with a facelift. So it's a lighter arrow, great for those of you that don't like big pin gaps. So the typical carbon arrow is a sheet that is essentially rolled, and then the seam is sanded down in the finishing process so you don't see it. What Easton does is they actually weave their carbon together, and with the Matrix arrow, you can actually see that weave throughout the arrow. The last arrow I'm going to talk about, you all might have seen on Easton's Instagram story that I did a little talking point on it, is the FMJ Limited Edition Legacy Series. This is a standard FMJ arrow with a limited edition paint job. It's very reminiscent of some of the engraved rifles and shotguns that I'm sure a lot of us grew up with seeing in our grandparents' safes. The logo itself, engraved look to it. It looks like gold inlay, and then the diamond plating on the FMJ arrow is gold as well. So really cool looking arrow. Check out the rest of the specs on eastonarchery.com. The last thing I want to talk about is the brand new travel case from Easton. So those of you who follow Knights of the Apex, you know that I'm a big fan. That's what I travel with when I'm flying with my bow. It's very discreet. When you travel with a hard case, you're limited in the space that you have, even with some of the bigger cases. And you get a lot of undue scrutiny and looks and just attention that really you don't need when you're traveling through an airport, especially when you're going through places like New York or other states that just aren't as hunter friendly or familiar. What I love about the Easton case is that I can fit a lot of my gear in there. The old case design had a sleeve that went over to protect it. The new case design, they've done away with the sleeve. The material is a type 66 nylon, which is a Cordura material. It's 3 times stronger than the previous material. The zippers have been upgraded. They're still YKK zippers, but they're actually integrated into the fabric itself versus a sewn seam, which is a typical failure point in all types of luggage, and Easton designed this new roller case to compete with the highest end luggage on the market right now. Other features are stronger wheels. The exterior pockets now give you access to the interior pockets, which is really handy when you're on the move. Like I said before, a lot of times I like to keep gear in the case, and being able to access that from the exterior without getting into the bag itself is really handy. MSRP is going to be right around $420, so it is going to be up there with the other high-end bow cases on the market from, say, Pelican, but you get the additional features and space that you don't get with those cases. We all invest thousands of dollars in our gear. In my mind, it's worth investing an extra couple of hundred to make sure that my gear gets to its destination the same way it was in when I packed it. Alright, so that about wraps up Easton. Again, thank you all for the opportunity to attend ATA this year. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to make this video. There wouldn't have been the live feeds and the Instagram stories and the photos and all that stuff. So thank you again. For those of you who haven't been with Knights of the Apex from the beginning, you might not know that I've basically always shot Easton arrows and used Easton products, and when the opportunity came to partner with them as a pro staff member, I jumped on it for obvious reasons. They're a company that has really stood behind me and Knights of the Apex and this brand and given me countless opportunities in the industry that I otherwise wouldn't have. And that's the reason you partner with a company. When you have good people creating good products and giving you the opportunity to succeed and grow, that's what you look for in any job, in any industry. And with that, let's move on to easily the biggest news of ATA 2020, and that's John Dudley's move to PSE. Now, if you watched my PSE NXT 31 review, you heard me talk about that I thought that this pairing would be ideal for both parties. PSE has been producing some of the most underrated bows on the market for the last couple of years now. Feature-wise and performance-wise, they've really been up there with those top dogs, but their marketing just hasn't been there. By bringing on Dudley, the master educator, the Yoda of the archery world, they now get that voice and that educator that can highlight the advantages of PSE's systems and bring that to light, and with that, he brings the whole knock-on nation. Alright, so getting into the bow. The Evo NXT NTN, which stands for Nation, shorthanded. I'll use my own Evo NXT 31 as a visual aid, but the Evo NXT, the Knock-On Nation edition, is going to be built off the 33 platform. So it'll be 3 inches, 33 inches axle to axle versus 31, and the brace height will be 7 inches. I believe this one's right around 6.5. Over the changes really quick that Dudley made to the bow versus the standard model. He widened the arrow rest shelf to make more room for the knock-on elevate rest. That's Dudley's rest that he produces through AAE. He increased that shelf. He added a little trough here for your arrow to sit in when the rest arm isn't up. He also added more material in the riser itself. The reason he did that is because he added a second burger buttonhole. So you no longer have to worry about the rest being held against the riser with the single washer or that it's level or whatnot. You have 2 holes and 2 screws in there holding the rest in place. I'm happy to see that actually. I think that's a really good addition to this bow. The guide rod is now stationary. Dudley has it set to the utmost outer position and it's set into the riser. So it doesn't have the flexibility it had before, but he said that gives the most clearance for both your hand and the fletchings for the majority of shooters out there. He also removed some of the mounting options for the sights and left only the middle positions, which again he said would provide enough clearance for the majority of shooters. Other than that, the only other big change was the removal of the second stabilizer mount to make room for the kickstand system that he introduced with this bow. Now, if you watch my Evo NXT review, you might be saying all of the features Dudley removed were the ones that you said you liked the most. Valid points. This isn't the Coda Edition NXT, this is the Knock-On Edition NXT, and all the changes Dudley made were ones that he felt would appeal most to the Knock-On Nation and the majority of shooters out there. I think some of the changes, most notably the second burger buttonhole, are ones that I'm very excited for. I'm never going to complain about that arrow trough or a wider rest shelf. I think that's a good addition too. Is the kickstand a little gimmicky? Maybe. Do I like it? Yes. Would I rather have the second stabilizer mount? Yeah, I would. But again, I'm not John Dudley. Overall, the bow looks sick. I think the features are great. I think the bow is going to appeal to a lot of shooters out there. If you haven't shot a PSE in the last couple years and you haven't experienced that Evolve cam system, quite frankly, you're really missing out. I heard a lot of people saying, PSE is garbage, or you should have went back to Mathews and all this stuff. Listen, don't buy into the marketing hype, okay? If it was all about stats, the entire industry would be shooting Mathews. But the things that you can't always quantify, like grip, valley, shooter comfort, balance, those are all things that factor into why people choose certain bows over the other. Dudley didn't go to a crap company. He went to a company that is producing great products. They're just under-marketed. So overall, I'm really excited for Dudley, and I can't wait to see the changes he introduces over the next couple of years. I think it's going to be great for the industry. Speaking of kickstands, something I wish I had photographed and talked about more on my Instagram story is the new kickstand introduced by Mathews. I saw it, I thought it was really cool, and for whatever reason, I got distracted and just didn't videotape it. If you've never been to ATA before, it's kind of like being in Times Square, but archery stuff everywhere. Instead of having many large billboards, it's thousands of very tiny accessories, and it's really difficult to see and photograph all of them. But anyway, the new Mathews kickstand, what I really like about that design is it mounts to the limb pocket itself and it holds the bow in the air, versus the traditional kickstand, which mounts to the bows usually somewhere on the limbs, and then you're resting the kickstand on the ground and your limb on the ground, which if you've ever done this in a super muddy or dirty or dusty area, right, you don't want that crud getting in your cams and in your tracks. I really like the Mathews design because it clips onto the limb pocket itself, and I think it's just a very, very smart design. Moving on, I had the pleasure of talking to Bill from Iron Will. He's the proprietor and the inventor of Iron Will Broadheads. He's got a brand new wide cut broadhead coming to market this year. It's a vented design. If you follow Aaron Snyder on Instagram, you might have seen his post of some of the animals he's killed with that head this year. Iron Will had a couple of other Easter eggs on their display table, some tools and whatnot for our DIY bow shops. I'm not going to speak to him because I don't know if he's definitely planning to bring them to market, but if you were checking out the Knights of the Apex Instagram stories, you might have seen these in the background or in some photos. Bill, if you're watching this, please bring that stuff to market. One of the things I'm really excited for Iron Will to introduce this year is their brand new titanium insert and sleeve system. So Iron Will's been making a reinforced steel sleeve and insert system for the Easton Axis arrows for I want to say almost a year now. This year he's going to be introducing a titanium system. So if you're not familiar with it, the hit inserts sit inside of the arrow shaft. What it allows you to do is get a skinnier diameter arrow shaft with a standard diameter broadhead. This is a super consistent, super stable design. The weak point is when you impact something hard like bone or the ground on a pass through sometimes, what'll happen is the broadheads, right, and the arrow will flex, and sometimes you'll chip the ends of the arrow. Easton makes a aluminum bar collar that sits on top of the arrow to protect it, but what Iron Will has designed to answer this is, in addition to a hardened stainless steel hit insert versus the standard aluminum one, he also designed a sleeve which has a collar on it to cover and protect the tip of the shaft. This year he's got that same system, but he's introducing it in titanium. So the insert will actually be 15 grains, so very similar to the 16 grain Easton aluminum hit inserts that come straight from the factory, and then the sleeve will be another 10 grains. So by adding just 25 grains to your arrow, you've now drastically improved the durability and the survivability of your arrows. I didn't ask the MSRP. I'm sure that it's going to come at a cost premium. But if you're somebody that really values having a super durable design, and let's say you don't want to run a super heavy FOC or just a extremely heavy setup in general, that might be a really good option for you. So I got a few questions from people asking about updates from Sever, whether or not they were at ATA show. Sever was not there, neither was First Light. The reason for that is the ATA show is really purposed for facilitating business deals between retailers and manufacturers. Because companies like Sever and First Light are direct to consumer, the industry prefers that they're actually not at ATA show, because it's essentially just garnering media attention without really being there for the purpose of the whole show. A little background for you all that were wondering. But they do have a lot of new products coming out for 2020, including a new Target that I will definitely be getting my hands on and reviewing in the next couple months or so. Moving on to some products from another one of our friends, Rattler Grips has introduced some new Engage grips for the Mathews lineup. These are available in colors. So if you wanted to add some custom flair to your Mathews Verdicts, Traverse, or VXR series bows, you can now get those Engage grips in colors from Rattler Grips, and you can also get custom inserts done from Rob. DM him for pricing and details and to order. The grips themselves are nearly identical to the Engage grips coming out of the factory from Mathews, with the change that the flare on the bow hand side of the grip has been taken off on the front, which allows you to get a higher purchase on the bow riser and wrap that index finger really around it, which is something that a lot of target archers have been asking for, and that's actually what I like to do on my verdicts as well when I was shooting a verdicts. Also on display from Rob were his newest venture, Trifecta Broadheads. This broadhead design is a bit unique in that it's got a bleeder vein on the front of it. All of the blades are single bevel Lutz blades, so super high quality blades coming out of Germany. If you're not familiar, G5 actually uses these blades for their striker broadheads as well. Extremely sharp blades. Single bevel for just crunching through bone. The ferrule can be used with either mechanical or fixed blades. The mechanical blades, the way they deploy are very similar to the Severs. They're kind of rear deploying and deploy out. The fixed blades are a two-blade design, again, single bevel. You might notice as I'm going through this list that I haven't talked about anything that's really like groundbreaking or evolutionary, and that's really been the theme. I didn't see anything that made me go, wow, this is going to change the industry. It seemed like most companies were just streamlining the features of their products. They're trying to make their manufacturing processes more simple and refine the finished products based on user feedback. One thing I saw that I think a lot of people might have overlooked from the show was Truball introduced the new AccuStat 2 scope. For those of you that are fans of Truball and Axcel, you're probably already familiar with the AccuStat scope and AccuTouch sight. It's a very high-end sight. It retails for around $450. But since that scope came out, the Achilles heel that always kept me from buying it has been the pins. Axcel has had very fragile pins. In the past, it was basically just a hollow tube with some fiber optic in it. It was very fragile. If you just got your finger, or if you were walking with your bow and you got a stick or a leaf or something in there, there was a good chance you were gonna throw your zero off, and there was really no way to know for sure that you got it back in place without shooting your bow and checking your dope again. It was just a real vulnerability of that sight, but the pins were just so fragile that it basically made you just baby it the entire time. It just wasn't suitable for hunting, in my opinion. To the AccuStat 2, they've made the pins more robust. They're now very similar to CBE, Spot Hog, and Black Gold's pins. Much more durable design. You can tell just from looking at it. I noticed immediately looking through the scope that the pins were much beefier. They've also updated the rheostat scope, which is the fiber optics that collect light for the pins. By turning a cover, you basically allow more or less light to get in, which then adjusts the brightness of the fiber optics in the scope itself. They've updated that, again, making it more robust, a little quieter, more durable. One thing I actually got asked about a little bit on Instagram was the GOAT 2 release. I did play with it a little bit. All Truball releases are super high quality. They have very crisp breaks, but personally, I don't find them very ergonomic. They're just not my style. They don't fit my hand very well. So it's not for me. I know a lot of guys that swear by them. It's just not my style, but check it out. Unique design, worth looking into if you are in the market for a new release. Another update that I'm very excited for. This one comes from Last Chance Archery. So I'm holding in my hand the HS2, which is the draw weight scale, or the bow scale from Last Chance Archery. This is the Model 2. They've since introduced the Model 3. The Model 3 is smaller, more durable, and 10% more accurate. The big problem with the HS2, and something that I really hope they remedied in the HS3, is that over time, your hold weight would just be completely off. So I've noticed that my peak weight is still very accurate. It's true to spec, but my hold weight, it's just way off. Regardless if I'm holding an 80-pound bow, 85-pound bow, 60-pound bow, for some reason it just always thinks my hold weight is 6 pounds. I don't know why it did that or when exactly it started doing that, but like I said, I'm mostly concerned with my peak weight, so it's not a big deal. But over time, this thing has started to kind of creak in my hand. And that just makes you a little bit nervous when you're holding a bow. So I've had to make sure that I've always got an arrow nocked and I'm pointing in a safe direction anytime I'm using this thing. But I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting my hands on the HS3 sooner rather than later. And we'll see how durable it really is and if that 10% accuracy applies to the holding weight. The last company and product I wanted to talk about is tree saddles from Tethrd. I'm sure a lot of us have been seeing on social media tree saddles really coming back into popularity among hunters because it gives you a lightweight option for easily setting up in virtually any tree. Taylor Chamberlain was actually nice enough to give me a run through of the Tethrd tree saddle. Many of you are probably familiar with Taylor. He is a First Light and Mathews ambassador. If you haven't already seen it, after you finish watching this, go check out Beyond City Limits by First Light. It's all about Taylor and how he hunts in residential areas around Washington, D.C. He's basically hunting out of people's backyards. Not basically, he's hunting out of people's backyards. Fascinating, awesome watch, super badass, incredibly nice guy. Gave me the whole run through, threw me in one of the tree saddles. I was surprised how comfortable it was, and hanging around the Tethrd booth, that was the reaction of a lot of people. At first it's a bit awkward, there's a lot of gear that you're not used to, but I could see how very quickly you could establish your own system for safely and quickly getting up into the tree. And I think it's a big advantage, especially for someone like myself who I don't always have control of what stand I'm going to be in. A lot of times I'll hunt friends' properties where they have stands set up, but maybe on that particular day the wind's not great. If I had a tree saddle, I could set up in another tree on the opposite side of a field where the wind and everything is just more preferable, and I could do that without leaving a major impact. So I'm gonna probably look into trying to use that over the next year and just see how I like it. If not, it's just another skill set to add to the encyclopedia of knowledge. So why not? I lied. There was actually one company that I haven't covered yet, Tioga Rise Coffee. This little company out of Pennsylvania, they're awesome guys. They make instant coffee. This stuff is delicious. I was surprised how good it was. Just a cup of hot water, dump this pack in, and you're good to go. It was an awesome ATA show. It was great getting to meet everybody. So thank you all for watching. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you're excited to see coming out for 2020. What do you think of some of the products that I talked about? Always interested to hear other people's feedback. It always excites me to hear how we implement the same tools in different ways depending on the game we hunt and the areas we hunt in. I'll have links below for all of the products that I talked about, or at least the companies that are developing those products, so you can check them out once they are up on the site and available. If you want to support the channel and Knights of the Apex, definitely like, subscribe, follow on Instagram, but also pick up some Coda merch. If you don't like the merch that we have available, hit me up, shoot me a DM, drop a comment, let me know what you want to see, what you want back in stock. I want to produce stuff that you guys want to rep and that you all want to wear, so let me know. Also, thank you again to Easton for hooking it up. I was also at the Chama Chairs booth, picked up this brand new cup holder. But seriously, pretty cool design. It folds up. You could throw it in your backpack easily or in the Chama bag that the chair comes in. It'll mount to any bar, so you can use it on a UTV or anything else you can think of that has a round peg on it, bicycle. I saw some old lady actually had one on her walker at ATA. That was next level. You can use Coda 15 for 15% off and free shipping when you order through Chama's website. So thank you guys all again. Looking forward to 2020 and send them straight.